Sports Professor Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard, the show that goes behind a little bit, but way behind the trillion-dollar business of sports. Studies have said more than 70% of all the stuff that we hear and are written about sports today include off-field, not on-field. And so if you want the on-field stuff, you can get it as well. But if you want to learn a little bit more for fantasy or social or anything else, this is the place to go. At least we start the inquiry and we talk about all of the issues. The top 15 issues plus 5 philanthropic and 5 tech is available to you through horrowsports.com and our website. Also, NBC Washington has the top 3 and some of the 15. Also, Google Play, Audio Boom, join us on Apple Podcast and Stitcher and iTunes. Look for us everywhere. We're here every week. And the big deal is the Capitals, who have gone farther than some people thought after Game 2 in Washington against Columbus, but not as far yet as others. That's what makes the NHL season so great. Wizards over, but a lot of NBA stuff we'll talk about as well. Baseball season heating up. International stuff going on. Where better to talk about that than Washington? But let's start with racing. We have a lot of issues to cover as well. By the way, we're in Indy 500 week, and NASCAR is doing a lot of stuff that's trying to expand their sport. They've announced a formation of a youth esports racing series, the first esports competition created to attract and identify young talent. The series hosted on iRacing, the world's premier racing simulation platform, and NASCAR's youth esports series establishes an easily accessible entry point to real-world racing and provides young competitors with an unparalleled simulation experience on iRacing's ultra-realistic software. The youth series opened to participants 13 to 16 worldwide. The inaugural 12-week season kicking off in June on virtual renderings of iconic short tracks like Langley Speedway, the Bull Ring in Vegas, and Thompson Speedway Motorsports Park. The regular season, comprising the first 8 events, open to all participants. The 50 racers accumulating the most points after the regular season qualify to compete in the 4-week playoff. The top 30 in points after the playoffs advance to the finals at Martinsville. As we expand our presence in esports, NASCAR uniquely positioned as the only sport that can develop skills transferable to real-world competition, said Blake Davidson, NASCAR Vice President for Consumer Innovation. We're excited to see the young, diverse, and global talent pool in this series attracted and interested as, this is important, we cultivate our next generation of drivers. Yeah, they cultivate their next generation of drivers, but NASCAR is rumored to be talking about selling the entire entity. The France family's talking about it. They're reportedly working with investment bank Goldman Sachs on exploring its options for a sale. Could include giving up a majority stake. NASCAR's exact value would not be established, but sources close to the company noted it could be worth several billions of dollars. As a comparison, Liberty Media spent more than $8 billion, including debt, back in 2017 to acquire Formula One. And the France family also owns International Speedway Corp., the racetrack-owning entity, although there's been no indication thus far whether or not ISC would be included in the NASCAR sale. NASCAR currently in the midst of a 10-year television deal worth an average of $820 million annually. No agreement been reached yet. The family at the exploratory stage trying to find the right type of deal. Well, NASCAR, racing, Indy 500, all really significant. And what you look for are transformative folks. Lynn St. James completed her run in the IndyCar series, but she's still racing. 11 kart and 5 Indy Racing League starts to her name. She's one of 9 women who qualified for the Indy 500, became the first woman to win the Indy Rookie of the Year award, 2 victories at the 24 Hours of Daytona, and 1 win at the 12 Hours of Sebring. She'd competed in endurance racing in Europe, first 24 Hours of Le Mans, 24 Hours of Nuremberg. The latter, the team placed first and second class in 79. She founded the Women's in Winner's Circle Foundation in 94, motivational speaker. She's a panelist for the National Motorsports Appeal panel, the Distinguished Services Award, and she's won one of the top 100 female athlete awards and honored by Sports Illustrated. Nobody's better at business and certainly at understanding the perspective of racing than Lynn St. James. Here she is. Sports professor Rick Horrow here with an American icon, Lynn St. James. There are a lot of American icons in this room, but this is a true, certifiable, heroic American icon.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
I should leave now. That was
No, we're not even done because the
you.
IndyCar Series, one of 9 women who qualified for the Indy 500, 2 victories in the 24-hour of Daytona, won the 12-hour of Sebring, the 24-hour Le Mans, 24-hour of Nuremberg. There's a lot here.
Yeah, I've been doing it a long time.
Do you miss it?
I still do it. Oh, yeah, no.
And do it successfully.
Yeah, I do, actually. I ran the historic races in the 24 hours of Daytona in November, and I ended up running 2 cars, a 2006 Ford GT and a 1974 Porsche RSR, 911 RSR. Came home with 2 trophies, so we did pretty good there, and I ran the Bonneville Salt Flats last year. I ran Watkins Glen. I ran the vintage race at Indy, so I'm still doing it. I mean, I love it.
How mad are you at people who claim that race car drivers are not athletes?
Well, I don't get mad, but I do have a conversation with them.
Yes, you do.
To be able to explain to them that we are athletes, certainly. I mean, we put heart rates on, race car drivers. We maintain 85% of our max cardiovascular the entire time we're in the car. We don't carry the car, but we still have, nobody's been able to really describe how much physical energy it takes to turn the steering wheel. And the car, basically wants to only go straight. And so whether you're running an oval or whether you're running a road course, you have to turn a lot. And so we're still trying to figure out how to be able to tell that. And physically, just the footwork and the amount of energy it takes to put your foot on the brake when you're coming from, 200 miles an hour to maybe 80 to be able to go through a corner. It's the G-forces and the energy it takes. So we are athletes completely.
Of course you are. How's the racing changed in the last 15, 20 years?
Well, it's gotten better, I think. First of all, the technology of the cars is certainly so much better. But at the same time, the quality of the drivers there's more depth in the fields. There's always been great race car drivers, and there's always been great races, but I think because now any race, if you have 30 cars or 33 cars or 22 cars in the field, probably any one of them are capable of winning, as opposed to maybe 2 or 3 or 5 or something. So there's a lot more competition, and I think it makes the racing better.
We'll talk about the philanthropy in a minute because that's really, really important. But what about the business? What are the big factors that have changed from a business perspective in the last 15, 20 years?
Well, the one thing I don't miss is chasing sponsorship because that's really been a part of it. But I also recognized when I first started racing back in the late 70s and the 80s is that this is a business. Once you transition from accepting anything, whether it's money or product, then you recognize it's a business. Now it's a very sophisticated business, where back then it was a little rougher, it was a little, B2B was a little more about personal relationships, where now it is truly a business venture and a business exercise. And so, as always though, you really need to know, as a driver or a team owner, you need to know what you can do for the company, for the sponsor. They know what you want.
Do most drivers get it?
I think the ones that are out there that are successful do.
Sure.
There's a lot of talented drivers that don't make it because they don't understand that part of it. They think, I'm going to win races, so everybody's going to want me. Where you've got to understand the business.
From a philanthropic and charitable and foundation perspective, you're about to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Women in the Winner's Circle Foundation. You founded in 1994, it's a while ago.
That's right.
Obviously a seminal event, movement. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, in the beginning, it was really about just trying to help. And I found through learning from my shero, Billie Jean King, that if you get experts together and then provide education and provide opportunities, that you're going to help the next generation. So that's what I started 25 years ago. Hadn't done that math. And so for me, it's just about giving back. It's about if I can't benefit others through what I've learned, then it's pretty selfish.
Well, but it's also humble because you've done more than give back. The movement has taken on more. Are you, obviously, much more to do, Women's Sports Foundation, everything else. Are you happy with where things are? You'll never be completely happy.
No, in fact, I was just talking to our buddy Greg Ballard.
Yeah,
I said,
good.
I need help.
Yeah, right.
Because we have no data. We have no data for women in racing. It's nothing statistic, no research. It's all anecdotal, what people think, what somebody might do some counting. Okay, so I was the second woman to race at Indy. We don't need research company to know that, or that there have been 9 women racing at Indy, which is fabulous. But we need data to be able to understand where how we can make it better, because if we make the sport more inclusive, the sport's going to grow. We know that.
And also it transcends. So Dan Towers, with Greg's help, and we've all been involved, the Indy Women in Tech Golf Championship, the tie-in with the Indy Race Car family in Indianapolis. So it spreads the word. Training, urban development, that's all very important in the future.
Yeah, no, it is. We need education, but we need data to be able to know what direction to point ourselves.
Where are you in 5 years?
Oh, where am I in 5 years? Well, first of all, I'm going to be a grandma.
Awesome. There you go.
So I'm excited about that. And I hope I'm sitting in, hope I'm watching Victory Lane, and maybe in 5 years we actually have a woman win a major professional race in road racing or in NASCAR or in Indy. So I'd like that within the next 5 years.
It is an honor and a pleasure to be with you. And everybody listening, I don't want any snide comments about you drive like my grandma, okay? After that, no more. None of those comments.
That's actually be a compliment.
It would be a compliment in this case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Lynn St. James has been involved in all of these entities, and women clearly have come a long way in sports since Title IX, and she's made significant headroads in what obviously everybody says can be a male-dominated industry. Let's talk about some of the things that are top of mind to Washington fans. How about the Capitals? Left for dead after the first 2 games of the playoffs. At this recording, they're up 2-0. They go back home, and the white-clad sellout crowd of over 15,000 in Winnipeg, as Winnipeg hands the Golden Knights their loss in Game 1. The bottom line is that Winnipeg, 20,000 people capped at street parties. Vegas, nearly 5,000 decked out on an away street party in Vegas. Washington at an incredible frenzy now that it looks like the Capitals are at long last playoff contenders. And Tampa Bay looking to do what Washington did, ironically, going back home 0-2 and yet pulling out a series. So it's really high for an expansion franchise set by the Vegas Knights, but it's also really high that the playoff ratings will be significant, viewership and otherwise, when all is said and done. The twin companion, obviously, is the NBA playoffs, and they're the most watched games we've seen in a long time, notwithstanding the Wizards out. 3.6 million viewers for most of the games on average, up about 2% this year, but games specifically on TNT, ABC, ESPN average about 5 across the board for the semifinals. The best viewership numbers for the second round since 2013. Well, why? Well, Boston, the Bay Area, Houston, Cleveland, all in some of the bigger TV markets that have a vested interest in these series, and it's probably going to get bigger as the series go forward. But the interesting thing is the NBA continues to look positively at things happening off the court. The NBA and Intel Capital announced a sports and entertainment technology innovation collaboration called the NBA and Intel Initiative. Multi-year collaboration fosters the identification, formation, and growth of technology companies. And the new initiative was introduced at the Intel Capital International Summit last week, and will give attention to applied sciences that may improve on the NBA's on-court product, its fan experience, or the broader sports business. $1.5 billion business in 2017, the venture investment business, says Wendell Brooks, who runs Intel Capital, and this will obviously take the lead. So they're moving forward on and off the court. They're also moving forward from the WNBA perspective as well. A lot of positives, a lot of issues, and they're really focused on how to generate more corporate excitement as they look forward to the WNBA. For example, we're in the middle of the trying to get ready for the preseason, and it looks like we have a process that continues to move it forward as they focus on other issues as well. So, for example, the WNBA is looking to capitalize some of the additional investors. They're partnering with Sylvain Labs, an innovation and brand design consultancy, to develop a growth strategy and look at new marketing opportunities. The research makes clear that fans are interested in establishing deeper connections, and they begin their 22nd season, and the Big Brother NBA has found increasingly personal ways to connect with the fan base, fashion, music, obviously esports, we talked about that before. The WNBA likewise ramping off court branding, lifestyle, storytelling strategies. So it looks like the WNBA is moving forward in a very significant way as well. How about college basketball? Because it really does impact a lot of what we're going to see in the future. The Commission of College Basketball Chair and former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice clarified her stance on whether collegiate athletes should be paid or not. Rice stated that student athletes from all participating NCAA sports should be able to make money from their names, images, and likenesses. Rice defended her initial stance on the issue and the commission's work regarding its findings on men's basketball following the FBI scandal that shook the sport. And while noting her personal opinion on the topic of paying athletes, Rice made it clear the NCAA cannot enact any significant change before the pending cases are settled and the appropriate legal framework is established. Students ought to be able to benefit from name, image, and likeness, but you can't decide a program until you know the legal parameters, she said. And for proponents of paying college athletes, this appears to be their best chance of bringing that change to fruition due to Rice's reputation, power, and respect. Well, here's one from a college basketball perspective that you probably haven't seen. Everybody talking about Duke and their prolific recruiting year after year. But let's focus on a walk-on. Duke men's basketball walk-on Brennan Besser bikes, walks, and runs from Seattle to New York this summer to raise awareness and funds for his charitable foundation. Basketball, even though it's a game that we all love, serves really as a vessel for leadership coaching that Coach K teaches us, he said. The bike, I know this is exciting, but it's really just a vessel for the broader message. Besser's roughly 70-day journey starts May 16, will wind more than 3,400 miles across the U.S., and in most stops along the way, he hopes to hold basketball clinics or other events with the goal of generating $1 million for the Walk on America Foundation, which supports charities that help the intellectual and developmental disability community. What we're hoping to do is shine a light on the part of the American community that does not have that strong of a voice, he said. Coach K describes Besser as a one-of-a-kind walk-on because the spirit he brings is infectious to this team. Besser's inspiration is his older sister, Jacqueline, who at 23 is nonverbal with impaired motor skills and communicates largely through a tablet computer. Good for him. Good for the program. Wish him luck. And the bottom line is that basketball at all levels seems to be evolving and seems to be very healthy. Let's talk about football for a second. Recent professional sports report indicates the NFL gives its fans the worst game day experience among American pro sports leagues. Among the Big Four, the NFL finished the last 8 of 9 experiences by the Temkin Group among 10,000 plus fans, scoring the lowest in parking, concessions, and bathrooms. The news wasn't all bad for the NFL, though it remains the most popular sport to watch on television. We know that. Wide margin. About 51% of those surveyed enjoy watching the league on their couch. MLB at 38%. And parking prices and convenience proved to be a big deal with NFL fans. Traditional tailgaters all. Those surveyed rated parking as the worst part of the NFL game day experience. The price to park your car outside an NFL stadium varies across the league, but it can cost a significant amount, between $25 and $75, like AT&T Stadium in Arlington, and often a 15-minute walk or more. For those who think this survey is another sign the league is failing, think again, though. The NBA broadcast deals, the largest the league could pay in empty stadiums, and still generate more revenue than any other pro league in the U.S. Why? Well, advertising is part of it. NBC's new strategy could result in companies paying more than $1.4 million to get their 30-second ad spots aired during Sunday Night Football. The network planning to cut down on the amount of commercials it shows during prime time originals, proposing shorter breaks with just 2 ads each. in exchange for giving companies a greater chance at standing out to audiences. NBC wants significantly more money, of course. If the price tag for a Sunday night football game were to be raised north of $1.4 million this year, it would mark a doubling of last season's cost for a 30-second spot. Specifically looking to cash in on Sunday night football compared to its other packages, since it's been the most watched primetime program for the past 7 years. The aggressive strategy has not been finalized, but it should be cemented over the past few weeks, and you're absolutely sure that NBC will get what they want as far as this kind of structure as they move forward. Well, let's talk a minute about international stuff broadly defined. For example, let's talk about the World Cup. One of the issues that everybody is talking about is, what about the bid? Well, Morocco has a bid and the U.S. has a bid. There are just a couple of issues. The U.S.'s bid may be as high as $10 million more than $10 billion more than the U.S. than the Moroccan bid, $10.8 billion to be exact, according to the bid organizers. $14 billion in revenue, most successful World Cup ever, according to U.S. soccer president Carlos Cordeiro. About $3 billion is the Moroccan bid. And in a day and age where FIFA is trying to rid itself of any signs of financial corruption, the opportunity to get nearly $11 billion from the one-month tournament still might be too appealing to pass up. Another international issue is the IOC itself. They're allowing the Canton of Valais to join Sion, Switzerland's Olympic bid, should it be selected as the host for 2026. The host city and will contract with the Swiss Olympic Committee. The Canton of Valais noted that the IOC gave its backing to other local authorities being able to co-sign the city as a host contract. The move marks a larger step forward for Sion's bid, hoping to formalize it and bring it down the financial burden the city would face in hosting the multi-week event. And the bottom line is, the more and more expensive, the less and less you have as choices, and the more creative the IOC has to be in terms of developing these international issues. Finally, hard to know it, but the World Cup is almost here. 2018 World Cup starts in about 2-3 weeks, with 3.2 billion people set to watch the World Cup. Budweiser preparing to take advantage of the unparalleled audience. The official beer sponsor of the World Cup for the last 32 years, Budweiser not new to the sporting event. Yet the company continues to increase the size and scale of its campaigns. One will launch in more than 50 countries, the biggest global activation ever. And there's a reason that Bud's been the official beer sponsor for 32 years. Like any standout brand, constant adaptation and reinvention are an important part of the successful sauce for any marketing. Let's fittingly end with baseball, and let's fittingly end with a process that is really positive. The Major League Baseball folks are looking at how to deal with opening in Tokyo in 2 years. They've opened in the Dominican. They've opened in Monterrey, Mexico, and that looks pretty good. But one of the things that we always focus on is giving back to a community. The Nationals will dedicate Bryce Harper Field at the Tacoma Community Center in Northwest Washington this month. The third legacy field created in conjunction with the Nationals Dream Foundation and the D.C. Department of Parks and Rec. And youth baseball, very important part of my childhood, said Bryce Harper in a statement. The Nationals Dream Foundation plans to renovate one youth baseball field and softball field in the D.C. region each year, and has done so for the past 2 seasons. Ryan Zimmerman Park became the first in April, with a new field just blocks away from Nationals Park. Ivan Pudge Rodriguez Field, dedicated in August 2017 at Mason District Park in Annandale. Bryce Harper Field will also serve the surrounding community by hosting the Senators' Satchel Paige Little League games. Kudos to the Nationals, kudos to the city of Washington and the Parks District. That's what the power of sports is all about. We'd like to thank Tanner Simpkins and everybody else associated with Comcast NBC for helping to put this together. like to thank others around the country for giving us ideas for Power of Sports and the process for putting together all of the issues for Beyond the Game, Beyond the Scoreboard. We'd like to thank you for watching and listening, and Lynn St. James for lending her expertise as we get together on a monthly basis to celebrate the Indy 500, and on a weekly basis to giving us the trends in the sports business, philanthropy, marketing, digital, esports. You got it, everything off the field. Again, thanks for listening. Join us next week when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.